All right, let's continue on. Finding opposites. Positive numbers such as 2 are graphed to the right or above 0 on a number line, and negative numbers such as -2 are graphed left or to the 0 of number line. Now, I don't agree with them putting both opposites and absolute value in the same lesson because I think it can be confusing. The opposite of a number is going to be its positive or negative. So, for example, positive 2, the opposite is going to be -2. Positive 3, the opposite is -3. Positive 18, the opposite is -18. The opposite of the negatives are the positives. So -6, opposite is +6. -365, opposite is +365. Okay? But the reason I don't agree with that is I think sometimes students get mixed up between that and absolute value. Because absolute value is always a positive, where this is just simply the opposite of a number. Alright? So opposites are numbers that have the same distance 0 in the opposite direction. Since 0 is not negative or positive, it is its own opposite. So the opposite of 0 is just 0. You don't have a -0. There is no such thing. So the opposite of a number is the number itself. For example, the opposite of 3 again is -3. Okay? So then we go down here and it gives us these examples. The opposite of -5, and they go here. Well, the opposite of -5 is go to the other side of the 0 and it's a +5. Okay? Alright, the integer -5 uses the negative symbol. The opposite of the negative symbol is the positive symbol. So the opposite of -5 is +5 or just 5. Alright, find the opposite of 4. What's the opposite of 4? Well, you want to go just as much distance to the left of 0. So if you've got 4, the opposite is -4. Okay? What is the opposite of 3? Alright, if you said -3, you are right on the money. What's the opposite of -2? Opposite of a negative is a +2, so just 2. Okay? Opposites. If it's a negative, make it a positive. If it's a positive, make it a negative. Okay? Those are pretty easy. The absolute, but I don't like the way they put that in here because I really feel like it just tricks you. Okay, so like this is absolute value. The absolute value is a distance between the number and 0. So and it's always written in these really goofy brackets. Okay, it's always written in like a straight bar bracket. So if they want to know if this can actually just be a question. This means absolute value of 4. That is your question right there. What's the absolute value of 4? Okay? And your answer is just going to be 4. Okay? And they can say, what is the absolute value of -4? It's still going to just be 4. Always, always, always positives. Always. Okay? Because again, just because I went to the west to go to the tree, even walking backwards back does not make me walking negatively. Have you ever walked negative somewhere? No, you don't. So think about absolute value is how far you travel, where opposite is just like the opposite. Opposite of up is down. Opposite of left is right. It's complete opposite. Opposite of positive is a negative. Opposite of a negative is a positive. Absolute value is simply the distance you travel. I go 3 feet one direction. How far am I going to go back? I'm going to go 3 feet back. If I took a walk down the hall and I went to Mr. Krause's room, however many feet I took there, I'm going to take the same distance back. I'm not going to take a negative 10 feet back. I'm going to turn around and walk back, right? So absolute value is always a positive because it's just asking how much distance you traveled. All right, so here's a good example. It says absolute value of -7. So it shows us where -7 is on this number line. But all they want to know is how many units is it back? How far do I have to go back? 7, right? I don't have to go -7 back. It's just 7 units back. Then they're going to throw in this tricky little thing where they ask you to add. Now this looks like a really complicated mess, and I'm going to rewrite it a little bit bigger even though it's on your page because some of you might not have the Glencoe book with you. So this is what the question is. Absolute value of 5 plus the absolute value of -6. And it looks like this big, complicated, hard problem, right? But you gotta think that these negatives don't exist. There's no negatives. So the absolute value of 5 is just 5. And the absolute value of negative 6, well, that's just 6. Because we don't have negatives in absolute value. If you went to the left 6, how many places would you have to come back? Just 6. So you just add 5 plus 6. And you get 11. So the absolute value of 5 plus the absolute value of negative 6 is just 11. You just add the numbers. Okay? They make it look so complicated because they have to put these brackets by it so that you understand that they don't want you to just add positive and negative numbers. Because if this was 5 plus negative 6, it'd be a whole different answer. Okay? Because if you had $5 and then you lost $6, the answer to that would actually be negative 1. And they don't want you to answer it in a negative. That's why they put those brackets there, so that you understand the difference between adding and subtracting positive and negative numbers and wanting to know distance. All right? Okay. Let's see. Let's scoot up. So they had us fill in these blanks. This would be, so here's another one. Absolute value, so absolute value of negative 7 minus absolute value of 3. Well, absolute value of negative 7 is just going to be 7 because we just turn it into a positive. We don't have to add, subtract, multiply, or divide, just make it a positive. Absolute value of 3 is just 3. So what's 7 minus 3? 4. Okay? Don't make this more complicated than it is. Those brackets can be really scary and it looks like it's a bunch of craziness, but really it's not as bad as what you think. So don't let those brackets scare you into thinking you don't know what you're talking about. Okay? This is a question right here. Remember I told you it could look like this? It says the absolute value of 14 looks like this. In case you don't have your book. Absolute value of 14. What's the absolute value of 14? If I took 14 steps that way, how many steps am I going to take back? Right, 14. This one says absolute value of negative 9 plus the absolute value of 3. What's the absolute value of negative 9? If I went 9 steps to the left, how many am I going to take back? Still going to take 9 back. If I took 3 steps that way, how many steps am I going to take back? 3. 9 plus 3 is 12. See, this is easy. This is just adding. All right, and the last one, absolute value of negative 8 minus absolute value of negative 2. If I took 8 steps to the left, how many am I going to take back? 8. If I took 2 steps to the left, how many am I going to take back? 2. What's 8 minus 2? 6. You're done. Just simple adding and subtracting. It just looks really confusing with bars and negatives and all this goofy stuff. Now, the sign here, this minus sign you got to keep, and this plus sign you got to keep, but your answers in between those brackets are always just going to be a positive number. You don't have to change them, you don't have to simplify them, you don't have to do anything like that. Just change them to a positive. If it's a positive, it just stays. It's just a positive number. Okay? All right. Let's move up. A seagull flying 25 feet above sea level. That's a positive. Above sea level is a positive thing. Nevaeh is diving 20 or 15 feet below sea level. What's the distance between Nevaeh and the seagull? All right. So we got the absolute value of 25 plus the absolute value of negative 15 because the seagull is above sea level and Nevaeh is diving below sea level. So we need to figure out what those two together would be. So they show us here the absolute value of 25 is 25 and the absolute value of negative 15 is 15, right? Because even if she goes 15 feet down below sea level, eventually she's got to come up for air. She's not going to keep going negative or that's going to keep going further down. She's going to come right back up and get air. So whatever distance she took down, she's going to come right back up. So it's a positive 15. 25 plus 15 is 40. All right? All right, let's quickly go through this guided practice. What is the opposite of 0? Tricky one, tricky one. Oh, I should have done that. What's the opposite of 0, guys? There's no opposite of 0. It's just 0. It's its own opposite. That's a tricky one. What's the opposite of 6? Opposite, not absolute value, opposite. Opposite of positive is negative 6. What is the absolute value of negative 5? Not absolute value. If I went 5 feet to the left, what am I doing to come back? Good. Positive 5. We got absolute value of 20 minus the absolute value of negative 3. Absolute value of 20 is going to be 20, right? Absolute value of negative 3, even if I went to the left, I'm still coming the same distance back. 3. So 20 minus 3. You got it. 17. Absolute value of negative 16 plus the absolute value of negative 12. Absolute value of negative 16 is what? Good. Absolute value of negative 12? Just 12. 16 plus 12. Let's see. 16 be 26, 27, 28. Now, how I did that in my head was, I know that I can take 16 plus 10, because 16 plus 10 is 26, and then I just added the 2 left on. 27, 28. I do a lot of adding like that by tens. It's very helpful for me to be able to write them that way instead of trying to just line them up and add them. I add in my head a lot using multiples of 10. All right, we got one more here. A game show contestant lost 15 pounds. He answered 15 pounds. Huh, that's funny. 15 points, I meant. He answered another question incorrectly and lost another 15 points. How many total points has he lost? Well, he lost 15 points, and then he lost another 15 points. What's 15 and 15? 30, right? He lost 30 points. All right? All right. How can absolute value help you understand the size of a quantity? Give an example. What do you think? Well, what if we talk about money? If you are minus 30 in your account, what do you have to do? How much money do you need to get back to not having money but not owing money? Right? You need $30. So if you are negative 30 in your account, meaning you spent too much money, you spent $30 over, what do you need to get back to zero? You need $30. So absolute value can help you figure out how much you need to get back to zero. All right, I want you to rate yourself. How well do you understand opposites and absolute value? If you are clear, you got a sunshiny day, circle that. Somewhat clear, you know, you're getting there, you're not so sure, do the partly cloudy. And if it's not so clear and the whole thing's a clouded mess, circle your clouds. If you need extra help, come and see me right now or see the adult that's in the room nearby. Maybe your parents or another adult can watch this video and better understand what you're learning about. I hope you make great choices today and you have a great day.